Hi, welcome to the Pro-Pilot Playbook podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sean.
Hey, and welcome back to another great episode. We got some new equipment here. Sean was nice enough to hook me up with the fancy microphone that he uses. So hopefully we both have great audio. I lost the earbuds, man. So we're moving up. We look like Joe Rogan now, man.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Actually, he wears the big headphones.
Yeah, he's got the cans on. The cans.
Oh, man. Well, we got a great episode today, one that Sean and I, we might have to cut this one short because there's a lot to talk about on this one, but we got a great question on corporate pilot lifestyle. So go ahead and read the question, Sean. I don't have it pulled up in front of me.
Yeah. So this one came in from, another YouTube comment. And we're, like I said, I think in the last podcast, we were kind of late to realize people were asking questions in the YouTube comments. So we're sorting through them here, getting to them. This one came in September from QC is his handle on YouTube.
Okay.
And it was a comment to the state of the pilot industry video we put out back around then sometime. But QC comments, I should say, please continue to make videos on corporate aviation. I would love if you guys could make more videos about what the corporate aviation lifestyle is like in general. And could you guys go into depth about having control over your schedule and time? Because I am training right now for my PPL or private pilot's license. And when I get there, I want to have control over my schedule. Love the content. Well,
great. I love this question. And thank you for having that question, because this is a very, very complicated answer. So,
right.
I guess I'll start by talking about Sean was an airline pilot, so he can touch on that schedule. But here's the thing. With airline pilots, most of their schedules are the same. Most airline jobs, I don't want to say the same, but you bid your trips and yada, yada, yada. And for the most part, most 121 carriers have a varying schedule to the same, but it's based on seniority and you pick your trips and that kind of thing. So in general, airline pilot schedules are the same. Just they get better based with seniority. Corporate is not like that at all. It is completely dependent on your job, and every job is completely different. And I've had several of them, and Sean's had several of them, so we can touch on what to expect if you are a corporate pilot and how the lifestyle is. And obviously, I've been living it for 20 years, so I don't think it's too bad. But it depends on the job that you have. So. Okay.
Right. Corporate, the word corporate pilot also gets thrown around a lot and gets branded as the name of several different things. I mean, to say you're a corporate pilot, that could mean, and we've mentioned this in other podcasts before too, just because you're flying a corporate jet, there's several different facets of that and so many variables yeah. So I guess, we could run through a few of the scenarios here of what a corporate pilot is.
Yeah. Okay. So there's, your large charter companies like NetJets, Delta Private Jets, Wheels Up, FlexJet. These are huge operators that have tons of private jets, and they're for sale for rent. And that's referred to as charter in the business. And those are good jobs. They're exciting, especially when you first start, because you're going to all these cool places. But those are on-demand rental of private jets. And they have more like an airline schedule, not quite, but more like where you basically have days on and you have days off. And you can pick your days on and, you pick your line, so to speak. And very common in that business is a 7 on, 7 off. So you're gone for a week, then you're off for a week, then you're gone for a week, and then you're off for a week. And Sean and I did that kind of flying at a previous employer. It's nice because if somebody asks you what you're doing, 3 months from now, you'll know if it's your off week or your on week. And then a lot of those places, if you take vacation, you get 1 week off, which is really 3 weeks. So it's pretty cool. Now, when you're on, you have no idea where you're going, unlike an airline pilot. You just know I'm starting on Wednesday, and then you're probably getting on an airline flight and meeting a plane somewhere. You have no idea where it is. You get there, and then you bounce all around the country and sometimes the world for 7 days. And then wherever you end up on your off day, they airline you back to where you live. And the
Right.
cool thing is you can live anywhere usually because that has airline service, because they just airline you in. And if variety is what you're looking for, that is some variety, wouldn't you say, Sean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's several variations depending on the company, what airplane you're on at the company, or what the staffing is on that plane. The 7 and 7 is just an example. It could be
Right.
6 on, 4 off. Could be 10 and 6. Could be 10 and 7. I mean, I've heard several different variations of that type of schedule
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
those kind of operators.
Yeah. And then you got just a regular corporate job, which would be like flying for a big company, like, for instance, a huge pharmaceutical company. I know they're in the news, or Walmart or Target, or any of these huge retailers, maybe Google, these tech companies. These are big flight departments. We call those Part 91 flight departments, and they have a bunch of private jets and they have a bunch of pilots. Those will have kind of a hybrid schedule, I guess. Every operation's different, but you can have somewhat of a schedule there where there's trips, and then schedulers assign those trips, and then you have certain weeks off, that are guaranteed off, and then they drop you on different trips around there. So, and then there is some on call, and depending on what type of operation, there's on call associated with that. The previous example we gave of that on-demand charter, you are on call 24/7 on your on week, but on your off week, they can't call you, kind of thing. Corporate operations are not like that. They'll have different policies for when you're on call and everything. And then you get to what Sean and I do, which is smaller companies that maybe have one airplane. And in Sean's case, one pilot, but very commonly it's a 2-pilot airplane, so you have 2. And then that varies. That's what I'm on. I'm on a 2-man crew right now, which is a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's not what you want," because whenever the airplane moves, I'm on it, because there's 2 pilots required and we only have 2. There is a caveat to that, though. You can hire what's called a contract pilot. So if you need a time off and the airplane's moving, then you can hire a pilot and pay them a day rate. And oftentimes there's pilots in your area that fly the same type of airplane. So you just borrow somebody from another company, and we do that to help them out, and they do that to help us out. And then you can have somewhat of a set schedule. But so this is not a problem. 2 pilots, 1 airplane, as long as you don't fly that much. So we don't fly very often. So I don't work much. So yeah, okay, I got to fly whenever the airplane goes, but it only goes somewhere every 10 days or something. So is that really that bad? You got to work every 2 out of 10 days. You can't pick, when that is. But there is we have an idea of the person that I fly for's habits, and the company and where they travel. And we know they go certain places, certain times of the year, and there's certain meetings on certain days. So I actually have a very good idea of what I'm doing week to week. But the long-term planning can be difficult, but we have maintenance events. So you have 1 airplane, 2 pilots. There's inspections on the plane. We know when those are to some degree. And when the plane's not available, when it's down for maintenance, you're 100% off. So you could go to the moon. It doesn't matter because the plane can't fly. So there's scheduled maintenance events. You can plan vacations around that. We plan our vacations around when the company takes their vacations. That works well too.
Especially when you're going to Grand Cayman for your.
Yeah, sometimes you can have your family come on a trip on the airlines and meet you where you're at, and kind of everybody wins there. You don't have to take off, and the company gets you to fly the plane. Then you get there for free, so to speak, because you would normally go on the airlines. So you only have to pay for your family's tickets, and sometimes the lodging's paid for because you're supposed to be there anyway. So there's lots of perks in that respect. But to say you're going to find a job exactly like mine, you're probably not. There's going to be different variations. But And then it matters how often does the company fly on the weekends. So if you're doing corporate business trips, mainly, you're probably hardly ever working on the weekends. And that's a very important part of a corporate pilot schedule. So, if you might, you may not know what you're doing during the week. You might have to work a couple days a week and you don't know whether it's Monday or Friday or Thursday, but who really cares if you're always off on the weekends, that's a short answer, but how would you add to that, Sean?
Right. I mean, no, it's great. It's great. But there's so many variables. Like you were saying, you're on the plane with two pilots. Some aircraft, I mean, yours doesn't fly that much, but in a similar situation, a corporate flight department that had one jet, you might have three pilots working there, and the company probably just has like a calendar, a shared calendar for the jet. And between the three pilots, you guys work out your own schedule. And, everybody plays nice with each other. If something comes up with somebody's kids, you got it covered. There's just so many. I would say the worst situation ever would be, a guy that flies single pilot in a King Air or something and is always on call no matter what. And he has an erratic boss that never knows what he's doing. And
multiple owners.
Yeah. Or multiple owners using that airplane.
When things get tricky,
that's another. That's a nightmare. But it is so all over the place to, say what a schedule would be like. As far as lifestyle, I mean, the other part of your question is lifestyle.
Right.
The corporate aviation lifestyle, I think Mike and I both love it. That's why we're here.
Right.
Doing this. I would say, one of the main things right out of the gate is typically in a corporate environment, you fly less than an airline guy. Yeah.
I mean, an airline pilot may do in 2 months what we do in an entire year, as far as hours.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're typically flying somewhere like a typical trip would be, you fly to LA and you sit one leg and then you sit there for 3 days and you do whatever you want. And then you fly back. That's typical. Airline pilots don't do that. They fly to LA, then they fly to Seattle, then Salt Lake, and then spend the night in Salt Lake, and then 3 or 4 legs, and then Miami, and then they're in Miami, and then they go to Atlanta, and then they're home. You know what I mean? So that's a total different ball game there. Now, if you're into other things, you got side business that you do. Maybe you make aviation podcasts. I don't know. But it's nice because you're out in LA and you're working. You're not at home. You're away from your family and everything, but you can do whatever you want. So you could work on this stuff or things with the company, get things, other work that you have to do during that time. Where as an airline pilot, they're kind of unplugged for that time period because they're flying all the time. So that's another important thing, wouldn't you say, Sean?
Right. Oh yeah. It's the lifestyle is completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, in the airlines, you get to, most of the routes are built, you get to the hotel and you got enough time to, get something to eat and whatever they got, especially the regionals, they got everything packed in there so tight. You don't have time to mess around. You don't get a rental car or anything like that. You get a shuttle from the airport over to the hotel. And then early in the morning, you're off doing the next thing.
No time for golf at all.
Yeah, no. Flying, 3 to 6 legs in one day. I don't know. Maybe not 6, but I mean, in our world, Mike and I will show up at the airport. This is a typical day. We'll show up, we'll get the jet ready. We do everything ourselves. That's the airlines. You have somebody doing everything for you. But we're the ones making sure the airplane's clean and making sure we got the right fuel or doing weather stuff, flight planning, maintenance stuff, whatever. We're taking care of all that, where the airline, somebody else is doing all that. And then we'll fly one leg to usually, if it's a vacation destination, somewhere nice. And we've already hooked up our own hotel rooms that we want at our favorite spot. And we have a rental car for us and we're there for, could be a day or two, or we could just be turning around and coming right home later that night and we're done for the day, for the next 10 days even. It's a completely
another thing lifestyle. A lot of these companies will allow the airplane to be uncovered. Mine does, which is a nice perk. If they're going somewhere for an extended period, say 2 weeks or a week even, and they don't feel they're in a position where they would immediately need the airplane or have what we call a hot crew.
Sure.
Instead of you guys staying there for a week, you can just land the corporate jet, take a taxi over to the airline terminal, airline back to your house, and then the day before they want to leave, you airline back and get the plane. So that now you're truly off. Then for that week that you're at home, you're separated from the airplane.
Right.
You're truly off. But one thing that I was just thinking that I wanted to address that comes up a lot, and you'll hear this a lot from airline pilots that have never flown corporate, and they bring it up as a big negative. They'll always go, "Yeah, you don't want to be a corporate air pilot. You're tied to your phone. Those guys they're constantly on call. I mean, you never know when someone's going to call."
Yeah. Overgeneralization.
Right. And I think more of that comes from the charter stuff that we talked about, that 7 on and 7 off. When you're working for those operators and you're on that week on, they will call you because they've got so many flights and something breaks and you got to go and this and that. They're picking some NFL player up in Miami and then there's a mechanical issue with that plane and you're sitting in Georgia, so they scramble you to go get him and all of that, which is exciting too. It's not boring, but when you're working for these companies like Sean and I do, it is possible. Yes, they could call you in the middle of the night and want you to go somewhere. But when you think of a normal person, like you just think of a time in your life where you would have needed a private jet within a moment's notice in the middle of the night. I mean, what was really going on that you would really need that? I mean, you can think of some scenarios in general where that might happen, but in your life, thinking back, does that really occur? So my point is it actually doesn't, it's not very common. It doesn't happen often where, the boss calls in the middle of the night and goes, I got to leave. What are you doing? Wake up, get to the airport. That's not it's a misconception, I think. Right. Now we do have changes in the schedule and they'll call you today and they'll say, hey, I got to go to New York tomorrow. Sorry about that. And they'll call that kind of stuff happens. But where you're, at Kroger shopping and then you got to leave your groceries and run to the airport and right. that type of thing. I have heard stories of guys that fly freight and things like that happening, but at least in my experience, it's very uncommon. How about you, Sean?
Right. No, it's never. Maybe once have I had some, but I feel like I still had like a heads up that something might be happening.
Right.
So I was already kind of throwing stuff in a bag anyway. Not that I usually don't have a bag packed, but good point. You were talking about the 7 on 7 off, sometimes, what'll happen is the on-call stuff, you'll go to work for the start of your 7 on or your 6 on or your 8 on, 10 on, whatever it is. And because they have to have that plane covered, they're airlining the other crew home and airlining the new crew out to have it covered. So the jet you live in Ohio, but the jet's sitting in Texas. So they airline the new crew to Texas and you just sit in a hotel room for 4 days or around the town until they put a trip on that jet, but they can't leave that jet uncovered. So that kind of stuff happens too, where you're working, but you're not really working.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That was really common when we were in the charter world. Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully it's a good place, Yeah, and you take the good with the bad. I remember walking on the beach in Miami one time in like January, and then boom, you get a text, and it's like, we're going to Minneapolis. Oh, God.
Right.
But the reverse happens. Sometimes you're in New York and it's snowing, and then they send you to Palm Beach, and you're like, oh, this is a win.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was so hard to pack in the winter. I remember summer's okay because it's nice. In the winter, though, you would need like all this winter gear. Plus, you would need your flip flops and your bathing suit, and all that, because you had no idea where.
Yeah, it was a big bag in the winter. Big winter time. Yeah. Big bag.
Yeah, mixed bag. But yeah.
So going back to the schedule thing, having control over your schedule. I just want to mention QC. Nobody ever accused a pilot of working too much, so you're going to have a pretty decent schedule no matter where you're at. Even if you go to the airlines, like Mike mentioned, you bid. That happens every month. Every month you bid on your schedule, or they call it the line that you want to hold. And so that's a mixed bag of all kinds of stuff, and whatever you can get is going to be based on your seniority. So when you first start off there, you're going to be the guy that ends up flying, the crappy schedule, probably over weekends, and it's 4 or 5 days a week. But as you get seniority, you can start bidding those trips everybody wants. It's, one flight a week to, I don't know, Palm Beach, whatever.
Honolulu.
Yeah. So there's always, now you may be asking the question because in one of these podcasts, I may have said it verbatim. I have control over my schedule, and I'm in a little different boat. I guess I can explain that if that's why you're saying it. So I manage aircraft. I don't really work for one particular person. I have a company that takes care of these airplanes and manages them. I go after these smaller corporate companies that have one airplane and are constantly going through pilots. I'll come in and fly on a contract basis for them, and then talk my way into managing the airplane for them, which means making sure all the maintenance is done and making sure somebody's not ripping them off on a hangar fee or something like that. And then I charge a monthly fee for that, and then I fly the airplane, or I find a pilot for them to fly the airplane on a daily basis. Then they don't have a high-end employee like a pilot to worry about, and it's cheaper for them also. So in that realm of what I do, I have control over my schedule because I'm not anybody's employee, and most of the work I do is contract work at this point. So I'll get calls from, I got 15 different aircraft spread across the country that I take care of or fly for on a part-time or contract basis, a daily rate basis. And if they call me and I got something going on, or I just, whatever, I don't work that day, I can just say I'm not available. I'm not available.
It's a lot of extra money too.
Yeah. It's good money. Typically I try to find them, a pilot if I'm unavailable for some reason. But so that's how, if that's what your question is in reference to, that's how I control my schedule.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, so the average contract pilot, I would say the range for a contract pilot is $600 to $2,000 a day, depending on what type of aircraft you're on. You can charge more, and what the type of trip is and all that stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to work on your off days, to fly for somebody for the reasons that I mentioned, like their pilot is sick or off or has the Rona or whatever. Yeah. And you they need a guy to cover a trip. So you can make a lot of extra money that way.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there's guys, a lot of corporate guys do that.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, I guess it's not for everybody. If you're a big planner, you may not like corporate flying, if you need things really structured. But if you're flexible and you like adventure, and you get bored easy, it's probably a better line of work, because it is not monotonous. I'll tell you that.
Right. Well, I mean, even if you are a planner, if you're flying for one of those big outfits, that you mentioned, the first type or whatever, that are basically charter companies. I mean, they have so many different schedules and so many. Yeah. It's only when you get into the smaller corporate operators that your life could become crazy, or unplannable, I should say.
Right. But those jobs do exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have heard some crazy stories about there's a couple operators out of Detroit that fly really old airplanes, jets, and car parts for the assembly lines in GM, and then they'll leave at a moment's notice and go to Mexico. But there's a guy that used to work with that flew one of those, and he said they had a 15-minute call out.
Oh my God.
But here's the thing. He said they had no dress code, though, so you could just show up in your pajamas or whatever you were wearing to go flying. But apparently if these, like if a GM assembly line goes down or something for a
Right.
part,
Oh yeah. That
they
costs
lose
them.
like $1 million a minute
Oh,
or something.
wow. Yeah.
Something crazy. But yeah, so you can find those. But I would say in general, most corporate jobs are about like what we do,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you might have to work at one of the crap ones until you, figure out how everything works and you have enough connections and meet enough people to figure out where the good ones are.
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of how things are. But when you first start, everything's so much fun. I mean, I'll be honest, it is so much. You're like, holy shit, they're paying me to fly this. Oh my God, I do this for free.
And you don't even care. Yeah. You're first. Exactly. Yeah. You're just happy to be, flip the script and be getting money to fly instead of paying money to fly.
Right. Yep. You're right.
But QC, I don't know. QC, thank you for the question. Mike, you got anything else? That's what I was.
I think we about beat that one to death.
Yeah. I mean, we could sit here and rattle on. That's what I was just realizing. We're kind of rambling on. I mean, we could talk about, we do have the most of our experience in this realm. I mean, we could talk about it and tell stories for another hour, but I think that sums everything up. I mean, everything that your initial question was asking, but you're working on your private pilot's license, looks like an update. QC, let us know how it's going.
Yeah. That was over the summer, you said. I guess one more thing regarding the lifestyle question is the destinations typically you go to in a private jet are better, I guess. It's not always, it depends on the operator, but you do go to the hot spots like New York where business is being taken, done. But, on the leisure flights, you're going to go to some really nice places. I mean, airlines, Caribbean and Aspen and Jackson Hole and Telluride and these really affluent places that, to be quite honest, most of our listeners that aren't pilots have only heard about or really seen in movies, ultra luxurious islands in the Caribbean and, and you're going to go at all the good times, you're not going to go to Miami in August, you're going to go in January, so that lifestyle portion of it to me is really neat. I mean, some of the things, in the Rocky Mountains and skiing and, Northern Canada and, or not Northern Canada, but Canadian Rockies, some of these things that I would have never have seen, if I wasn't in this business. And it actually helps a great deal when you plan your own personal vacations. You're like, I got a rule. I don't take my family anywhere that I haven't already been first. And it was wonderful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
If I go somewhere I haven't been, I'm like, I don't know, man. It's like watching a movie I've never seen. I'm like, I don't know. Am I going to like it or not?
Right. No, that is a good point. Yeah. You do get to see some places that most people never get to see, for sure.
Right. Yep. All right.
If you have a question for the podcast, you can send us your questions at podcast@propilotplaybook.com. And thanks for tuning in. You can see this anywhere now. We're on 7 different platforms. We appreciate all the subscribers and the viewers, the listeners. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot.